turn on the recording. So I'm going to start that now. So you probably just heard that prompt, but make sure that everyone also gets these slides so you can see these great statistics.
So
thanks,
I find this moment was lost in history. That's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Chad. We will remember you proudly. But thanks so much. So I'm going to pass it over to Robert Carr, who's the Education and Programs Manager for the San Diego Green Building Council, which is also the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative's newest core member. So Robert, excited to have passed it over to you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for having us. Really appreciate you participating for a second year in the Sustainable Building Week. So I'm going to first talk about kind of who we are. The San Diego Green Building Council has been around since 2006. We're a nonprofit 501c3, and programs like this and Sustainability Week and so forth is part of our mission to inspire and educate and collaborate with our community. So this is another example of that we really liked working with. I'm so glad we're core partners with the San Diego Climate Collaborative. Regional climate collaboratives, and it's all to basically help educate people how to basically make our built environment more sustainable and regenerative. So that's really what we're looking to do. Next slide, please. So we do this through our national connections. We have a lot of connections with other green building councils here in the nation, New York, Urban Green, LA, and so forth. And we bring all that to focus locally in projects that our volunteers and members can be a part of, like our Green Assistance Program. So we've with them have been able to LEED certify this the San Diego Food Bank and the Ronald McDonald House and municipal buildings in Chula Vista and San Diego. So not only do we educate through webinars and the like, we also do that through hands-on activities and personal interactions through our socials for winter social and summer social. Next slide, please. So you can get involved. It doesn't take any commitment to sign up for our newsletter. All things built environment sustainability will be in there. You can become a member. We have student rates, volunteer, love donations and sponsorship, and an opportunity to grow your network. And to support green buildings. So our website is www.sd.gbc.org. So go and check it out. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Sustainability Week. It was actually founded in Portland by a group of volunteers led by Weebly Bowles of the New Building Institute. And our former executive director, Josh Dean, who basically was interacting with him and got permission to kind of host something like that here in San Diego. And so they agreed and actually helped us rebrand, basically for San Diego, so it was unique and individual to us as well, along with some nice coaching and so forth. So our plan was just to kick it off in 2020. COVID hit, and that kind of hit the skids right away. So it was canceled, and then in 2021 we restarted it. The San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative was one of our first people to do that. We had 14 events. Pretty well attended, and so now we're kicking off once more. And unfortunately, most of it is still online, but we do have 4 different events that are tours and a happy hour. So and then next slide. And so it's going all week. So there's still some events that are happening today that you can sign up for if you go to sustainablebuildingweeksd.com, including a couple more tours and then the happy hour on Fridays. So hopefully we'll see you all there. And thanks again for your participation. And I'll hand it back to you. Thanks, Darren.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. So yeah, really excited to be here and continue to be part of Sustainable Building Week. A lot of the work the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative and our members have been doing over the years has really been helping to advance the region on that agenda. And so we'll also hear from some of our speakers today on some of the work, that they're doing related to this topic. But before we do that, I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully engage folks for a moment. So Annabelle, if you could share your screen. And if folks could answer this question, I know Chad mentioned a little bit before, but one of the things the Climate Collaborative does is to try to create resources that are impactful for our members. So we realize that we have a lot of different resources and things that we've created over the years, but maybe aren't getting them out to particularly our members and then beyond as effectively as we could. But we're also in this really great space of growth and opportunity right now. And thinking ahead, for the future, I just want to take a pulse of the folks in the room of, which regional climate resilience topic do you focus on most in your work? I know that this meeting in particular is maybe a little geared towards that energy resilience piece. But if you could click on the link Annabelle dropped in the chat, vvox.app, and type in the ID. And so while folks are doing that, speaking of, I do want to make a very important shout out to Annabelle Gong, who is on the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative team, who successfully defended their master's thesis yesterday. So also, if you guys could give them a bunch of kudos for that incredible work. I was able to attend and learned way more than I ever thought I would about sharks and rays. So very excited to have them on our team now. Annabelle Gong, Master of Science. So big kudos there. Awesome. And thanks folks for answering. Annabelle, I see we have about 7 folks who have entered. There we go. Great. So most folks in this room typically focus on, and we're getting lost, typically focus on energy resilience, which is, not surprising given the topic of today's meeting. Annabelle, you can stop sharing. I'll take over from here. Great. So thanks everyone for participating in that. Why that's so important is, we were talking with a lot of our board members and some of our members and realizing that, the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative has been around since 2011. But really since about 2015, 2016, we've had this really great capacity, both within our staff internally, which, has changed and ebbed and flows over the years, to start creating some resources that, can be really impactful and institutional for the region. So I just wanted to kind of take a moment to walk through, some of the offerings that we do have on our website, and then also make sure that I share this out with folks. So it's kind of a quick guide. I think it's also a really great representation of our growth over the years, as an organization, and kind of seeing some of that impact and change. So, we do have a lot of great energy resources that are consistently growing. And we've made a really big impact to kind of create some original content this year. You'll see a lot of those. The work, so Gabby on our team has been leading a lot of our energy work, trying to do a deep dive on, what is CalGreen, what are these building standard codes, and trying to make them digestible, particularly for, our members who are maybe getting thrown into doing energy work or maybe getting thrown into doing codes and compliance, acknowledging that most of our climate practitioners across the region, consistently wear many hats. So I think, we wanted to make sure that folks knew that we also had resources that could help you as, people assume that you are an expert in everything climate, to just make sure that, you're equipped or have something somewhere to go to start from. So we have a lot of great resources on trying to digest, what the updates to the 2022 energy code are going to be. Gabby is going to do a really great deep dive on our newest resource that I think will be of great interest to this group, which is our energy education hub. But we also have, a climate leadership story map that we made back in 2020, which, focuses on a lot of the climate action plans that cities have adopted. So I know a lot of folks on this call are tasked with doing climate action plan updates, this year, or maybe are just completing them. I know the city of San Diego is reviewing theirs. So we'll update this as they're going as well, which is a really cool opportunity for us. I also want to point out we've done a lot of work in the water space, and are still looking to kind of explore a lot of these spaces. Most recently, we completed a story map that many of you have seen on the nexus of water and equity in the San Diego region. Our data from that 2021 member survey that Chad was sharing about in the beginning really made it clear to us in the last few years that folks are trying to shift their focus to equity, but not just because they want to do equitable work, but also because we need to understand how we can do it. There is a much different process that happens when we're trying to do equitable based planning that we sometimes don't have enough funding for, which is usually the biggest hurdle to do it right. And also maybe not as much resources because there's not as many really good best practice case studies yet to pull from. So we've been doing our best to really focus on this space as well. And also thinking about the climate intersections. So we've been focusing on this kind of climate smart water interface. Most recently, we've been working a lot in kind of revitalizing our space of sea level rise and coastal resilience. But in the past, a couple of these studies have come to my attention recently as still in particular, the regional economic vulnerability to sea level rise study is still being pretty widely used across the state, as an example. But also there's been an increased need to kind of figure out how we can update these numbers. So that's also something we're looking into is, how can we also, help keep these resources current and understand, what are those additional needs that folks have. And then I also want to call out, as times are changing and a lot of folks are kind of, shifting from climate action planning into this coordinated climate action planning and climate adaptation planning. We've been really working closely with SANDAG in particular on trying to create resources that can keep up to this need. And most recently published the Equity First Approach to Climate Adaptation Guidance document, which we focus to work hand in hand with the state adaptation planning guidance, so that cities had these kind of complementary regional based documents and state based documents to help them move forward. So I just wanted to take a moment and kind of showcase and share and also give, our team some kudos for a lot of the work that happens, but also bring your attention too, because, we want to make these resources so they don't live in a silo. But with that, as we're thinking forward and as we're thinking ahead, I would love to get your input. So we'll have one more VVox question if you still have the app up, but on just for us, we want to make sure that we're consistently and continuously making resources that are helpful for you. So feel free to answer more than one if you have a lot of needs, but what types and or topics of resources would you like to see from SDRCC, coming up? What do you think is missing in the region? What could be really helpful? These could be, reports, case studies, things, or topics. Yeah, zero emissions, great, thank you. Webinars on reports, amazing. Environmental justice, yes, focusing on that equity piece as well. But yeah, folks could take a minute or two to kind of think about this and drop some answers in. We would really appreciate it. It'll help us, moving forward. Zero waste, adaptation actions, community engagement, absolutely. All electric codes, great. Sounds like something for Gabby to really focus on, which is awesome. So thank you all. We'll give it about one more minute to see other great ideas that other folks have. Adaptation, decarb, central plant, education resources, absolutely. Maybe like, community facing resources for our cities and agencies. Seeing a lot on all electric building, vulnerability reviews, waste and recycling. I know that's a big one right now with SB 1383. So definitely need some more resources and support there. Awesome. Great. Well, feel free to keep entering some ideas in here. We'll leave the poll open, but I'm going to try to be mindful of time and turn us over to our next speaker. But again, do feel free to keep entering those answers. We'll keep it open because it's really helpful for us. So thank you all. So I'm going to turn it over to Gabby Medina on the SDRCC team. Gabby is SDRCC's climate project coordinator and also has been really leading up a lot of our energy work in her role here to talk about our most recent resource that we released this year, the Energy Education and Resource Hub. So take it over, Gabby.
Thanks, Darby. Hi, everybody. Gabby Medina, she, her energy programs lead here at SDRCC. Really excited to share this new resource with you all because as SDRCC works to connect the region on clean energy with science-based climate action, we really wanted to kind of create a streamlining process for our network and regional government to create the most effective energy efficiency initiatives that we are also trying hard to do. So a little bit about the hub is this resource, the Energy Education and Resource Hub for the San Diego region. You'll also see it referred to as the Energy Education Hub, mostly from SDRCC. And so this living database serves as a regional clearinghouse for energy related resources and educational materials as they pertain to current and future energy codes, codes compliance and performance improvement, REACH codes, and also zero net energy. This program is funded by California utility customers and administered by San Diego Gas and Electric Company, SDG&E, under the auspices of the California Public Utilities Commission. So to start, the upcoming trainings and workshops page is a really cool resource. We are often bombarded with a bunch of emails or webinars. And so this Energy Education Hub provides a one-stop shop for our network to really kind of get an idea on what's going on, what kind of trainings and events are happening around energy efficiency. So first you'll see Energy Code ACE. Energy Code ACE is powered by the statewide codes and standards team vetted by the CEC. And so we went through all their trainings and kind of wanted to see what would pertain most to our network. So here you'll find a suite of energy trainings and webinars and classes from Energy Code ACE, and they are diverse from non-residential to residential, and also as Title 24 and Cal Green get updated, we will be keeping these trainings on everyone's radar and providing direct access to them here. And secondly, the Energy Education Hub is unique as it provides a regional lens to these energy events and also energy resources from statewide and local partners. So we have a page here showcasing San Diego regional events, and you'll see the network meeting at the top and also the San Diego County's regional decarbonization public workshops as well will be highlighted here. And lastly, the events from statewide partners. So you'll see the REACH Codes Newcomers webinar series, which some of you may have attended some of the first sessions already. We also have other webinars from our project partners and statewide organizations around energy resilience. And so you'll see things such as new cost construction, cost effectiveness studies for 2022, because those are starting to come out. New Buildings Institute has some great webinars on zero net energy and electrification of buildings. And also ACE has some great in-person conferences coming up as well. And so these are all updated constantly, weekly. And so as you come back to the Energy Education Hub, you'll see these events be updated, and you'll always have updated access to what's going on. So our next bucket is energy code compliance and code standards. Sorry, I'm just going to go to the front. So as we try to connect the region on understanding the evolving compliance pathways, but also staying ahead and staying efficient in our energy resilience initiatives and goals, we really wanted to provide a place where state and local government policy can come together to streamline these goals and also initiatives in order to create the most effective energy efficiency that we can. And so these informational and training resources and also highlighting opportunities for code compliance and performance improvement is found here. You'll see the SDRCC energy resources here. As Darby mentioned, this climate leadership in the San Diego region story map is a story of local climate planning, highlighting the power of energy efficiency to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and also the blogs that were mentioned as well on understanding the California Energy Code and also Cal Green will be found here as well. Energy Code ACE, as I mentioned before, our statewide codes and standards team runs this. And so they have a lot of great handouts and plans and fact sheets as well around energy codes. And so just providing direct access so local governments and the greater San Diego region can have a quick look at all of those. Next, I'll jump to REACH codes. That's our third bucket of this story map. REACH codes, as you know, are local energy ordinances that go above the state standard to increase building energy efficiency. And so this REACH codes bucket really provides access to the development of frameworks and the flexible pathways available from statewide and local resources available, and local government resources here in the San Diego region, and also tools and analysis and reports. So Local Energy Codes is also a statewide organization run by the REACH Codes team. You'll find some resources here. And as we all know, with REACH codes comes the importance of cost effectiveness studies and cost effectiveness explorers. So on this page, you'll have direct access, and it goes from 2021 all the way to available 2019 resources. And lastly, the Zero Net Energy bucket. This one is really awesome because it provides a suite of project guidance and design resources, and also opportunity for our local governments to advance policies and programs, along with a really great suite of fact sheets, case studies, and toolkits. And just also want to shout out that the background of this page is Ocean Discovery Institute. It's a local zero net energy building here in San Diego. And New Buildings Institute provides a great suite of resources that you'll find here. And lastly, this is also the Miller Hole San Diego studio in the background that you'll see. And you'll find toolkits, resources, and a Getting to Zero local governments toolkit as well from our partners at New Buildings Institute. And at the bottom, you'll find links to our social media handles, and that's the Energy Hub.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabby. I do want to take a moment here and see if anyone has, we have a few minutes to see if anyone has questions in particular about the Energy Hub. Feel free to either unmute yourself or raise your hand or drop them in the chat, and I can verbalize them for you if you're in a tough space to talk, but I'll just hold some space there.
I also do just want to shout out that we have a great resource to be added to the Energy Education Hub coming out from a regional case study database. And so I just want to share this form. I hope this works for everyone. We definitely want to highlight regional best practices on this resource. And so if you have a great project or a great ordinance that you're working on, please feel free to fill out that form, and I'll be contacting you within the next few weeks from your submission date. And so just really want to work with our network to highlight regional best practices and elevate the leadership that we have here.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for adding that, Gabby. Corey, do you have a question?
Yeah, or kind of just like a thought. I recently became an individual member of the San Diego Green Building Council. Our jurisdiction used to be a member. And one of the things I thought was really great was they have a list of sustainable projects. And there was a lot of projects in there, and it was really great to just kind of scroll through and see, you know, the different types of, it's pretty broad. And so, but there might be kind of a subset of those projects that we'd be interested in kind of highlighting in this effort as well, or in this hub resource as well. But I was really surprised at the diversity and number of sustainable buildings that are in our region. And so there might be a good connection between the two.
Awesome. Yeah, we are always looking. This is a constantly updated resource hub, like I mentioned. And so any resources that you would find supportive as a member of the SDRCC network and elevating climate action in the San Diego region, please send that over to myself or Darby. We are always looking on how to kind of elevate this resource and make it more useful for our members.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for sharing that. And yes, again, as Gabby mentioned, we're super open to, including additional resources, now that we have it established. now is the time to explore and see how we can, continue to make it grow. And again, Gabby updates that weekly. So there's always something new, and encourage you all to keep checking it out and letting us know if you have any case studies, because we will be launching the case study database on there. Which is a great segue into our next section. So some of the case studies that will be living on this case study database in the near future will also, you'll get getting a sneak peek here, I guess, about those. So we're going to do a little bit of a kind of rapid fire round. So our presenters are going to share for 5 to 7 minutes about a project related, to regional energy, their case study, and then we'll have some time afterwards to ask them questions. Again, if you have any thoughts as they're speaking, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll make sure they get captured at the end. But first we'll hear from Crystal Nahara, who's a sustainability manager at the city of Encinitas, and also a member of SDRCC's advisory board. Then we'll hear from Corey Downs, a conservation specialist at the city of Chula Vista, who will soon be joining our advisory board. And you'll get to hear from Chad again, and I'll be able to record it this time from the airport, who, as we all know, is our chair of the advisory board. So Crystal, I'll pass it to you. Do you want me to keep sharing, or is it easier for you to take over?
No, that's great. Yeah, this is just my intro slide. Thank you, Darby. And you can just jump over to the next slide. I only have one slide for you all today since we've got this popcorn style meeting. And this will be just a quick flyover of what Encinitas recently did to try to get our local buildings here to be using more electric sources of energy rather than natural gas. So the city of Encinitas recently adopted a REACH code that goes beyond statewide Title 24 code in both the energy code section and the CalGreen section. There's various different parts of our ordinance, including energy efficiency, solar PV requirements, and then the one that was kind of the most popular was our building electrification requirement for all new buildings constructed in our city. So I've set this up as kind of a quick recipe for you all for what you can do in your city if you'd like to kind of take a gamble at baking this in your own city. So kind of the 3 main ingredients, I didn't put actual amounts here because it depends on your city, what level of political will, public interest, or other resources you're going to need. But these are kind of the 3 main ingredients. You definitely need to have a leadership in your city, your city council, or other similar elected body, and then maybe some associated commissions that are very supportive of wanting to adopt something like this as part of your local policy. And then kind of in tandem with that, you do need to have some a sizable amount of public interest to be supportive of a REACH code like this. For us in Encinitas, we had several environmental advocates, including a few on our environmental commission, that really were big proponents of our city taking this leap. But then we also had some developers and some green builders who were also supportive. So that was really beneficial. We had kind of interest on both sides, interest in support, and then some concerned citizens who did really help to kind of shape the drafting of the ordinance as well. And then resources, you definitely need you need staff support, you need a budget, you know, in our case, we use consultants and free support to get this thing off the ground and bake it in the oven and get it out ready for use or edible partaking afterwards. So what was our baking process? We started off with building commission and council interest. Really, it was kind of a grassroots style level of interest that built up in our commission and our council. There was an appetite really for having this type of REACH code. And then what we thought was the kind of the best avenue to get this kind of through and into an adoption and a usable ordinance was to really bake the ordinance into our existing climate action plan. And as a cap measure, that really facilitated staff and budget allocation for working on this as a city project. And then the third step is to fold in public input and cost effectiveness. This step is essential. If you don't do this step, then you will probably not come out with something that's well baked and well formed in the end. So definitely take time to get input from the public on exactly what they would like to see in the ordinance, kind of how far you want to go with your reach. But then also you need to make sure that it's a state requirement that your reach code has to be cost effective for the building owner. So you have to kind of balance those two pieces of the pie. And then fourth is once you have a well-developed ordinance, you present your final concoction to your city council or other local approval body. And then, as in our case, we actually had to tweak our recipe a bit after going to council. We ended up going to council 4 times before we had an ordinance that was adopted by them. They actually wanted a much stronger, more full-bodied ordinance that went very far to the side of being an all-electric code. So that was an interesting process, kind of tweaking and revisiting. And then finally, you've got to serve up your adopted ordinance to your permit applicants. And this is a step that also can't be missed. There's a lot involved even in the implementation of your ordinance. And if you don't think about fact sheets or checklists, things like that kind of help facilitate the use or the abidance of these new requirements, then it'll be that much more difficult for your city. So definitely continue the work on your ordinance even through adoption and on to implementation. So that kind of wraps up Encinitas's kind of a flavor of how we adopted our reach codes, and I'll give it back to Darby and have her pass it to the next person. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Crystal. And as a reminder again, folks, if you have questions for Crystal, I'm jumping ahead, just drop them in the chat and we'll have time afterwards, or keep them in your brain and we'll have time afterwards. But Corey, I will hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you much. I'll be talking about an effort that we included in our libraries in the last few years of bringing some energy savings kits to our libraries. Next slide. And I think it's important to say that our libraries have kind of, for a while now, really embraced this idea of offering more than just books or movies. They offer a lot of educational programming, engagement with kids, other types of resources. Before this, they offered some of the tools in a similar mechanism, but just kind of one by one, tool by tool. And this was really an effort that we took from the city of La Mesa, who leveraged some local government partnership funding to create a toolkit. And we thought that's a great idea, used the same consultant. And they brought all those different pieces and tools together into one toolkit, and also importantly, gave and created a user guide, which I think is kind of as important as the tools. It walks a user through how to use each of the tools, how to look at their energy usage online, how to track energy usage, common areas for where there's opportunities for energy efficiency. And if anyone's interested, they can go to the website down there to learn more, and actually you can download a copy of the user guide, which, like I said, I think is really helpful. Next slide. Now I'll just look a little bit closer at some of the tools that are in the energy kit, and these are offered at no cost from our library, just like a book or anything else. A kilowatt, I think, is a little bit older of a tool. It just helps measure some energy that you might not know how much energy a device is using. And it's also important to say, you'll see the return some of these items have to be returned back, and some can be left with the homeowner. So like the LED light bulb, the weather stripping, they can kind of take those from the toolkit and put them right into their home. They don't need to return those. But there are some kind of newer devices, tools that people might not be as familiar with. It's great to see the cost of thermal infrared cameras coming down a lot, and we were able to include those in the toolkits, so you can kind of look behind your insulation or lack of insulation in your home. A propane or natural gas detector. We know that that leaks are pretty common in the gas distribution system, and oftentimes they're at very low levels that you might not ever know. But with the gas detector, you can kind of find and reduce those leaks, and overall, lots of small leaks and fixing them can really add up. And then, like I said, there's the weather stripping and the other items that the homeowner can keep. And I think one thing that's really great about those items and the infrared camera is it goes beyond just energy savings. I think now we're trying to think of an energy efficient home as a extreme weather, more ready home. So during, the best time to prepare for extreme weather is, well before the extreme weather event. And this kind of gets people thinking about how they can make their home more resistant to those types of events. Next slide. We also talk a lot about water. In San Diego, I think we're always going to be talking about water conservation. And so again, there's some kind of tools that they could use to, and most of these are a little bit more common, but like the water pressure gauge and, a water flow bag they might not just have on hand. And then things like the water faucet and low flow shower heads with our drought now is good to get out into the community. And I think, and then last slide. And we're working with San Diego Green Building Council to expand and to provide a location for their induction cooktop loaner program. So this has been really helpful because the library was a little intimidated about kind of expanding to this. And so we're able to work with the San Diego Green Building Council so that they can provide the resources, staff it, and the library provides a place to store it, and then just some space to lend them out when needed. But this is definitely something that we're excited about and trying to, demystify some of the new induction cooktop technologies. I know I have an induction range. I like talking about it, but I hear all the time, oh no, I do not like electric stoves. And I have to ask, is it induction? No, it's a resistance. And so there's a lot of preconceived ideas about electric cooking. And so it's really great to kind of have these tools to demystify that. And I would say that the kind of next, or what if I had a big budget and I could waive away liability, I've seen some jurisdictions lending out electric e-bikes. And that I think would be a really great way to, again, kind of demystify and showcase people what's possible with new technology. But that's definitely expensive, and our lawyers have not approved that. So we'll keep working.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corey. Yeah, it would be great to have some extra e-bikes. So I'm going to pass it over to Chad and Colin. I see your hand raised, but we're going to have time after Chad's presentation to ask all of our folks questions. So I'll make sure you go first. But Chad, take it away.
Great, thanks. Great presentation. This is going to be a little different as a kind of a special district or agency that it's not a municipal agency. It took a little different tack with this case study. But Corey, as a friend of the library, I think that's amazing. I noticed in my local library that they're actually serving Wi-Fi hotspots too. So yeah, just tremendous resource. Congrats on that. Okay, so yeah, so when working on zero net energy at SAN, one thing I forgot to do right off the top is I neglected to add a slide that kind of catalogs the authority's sustainability management program. It's a suite of 7 plans that carve out our long-term goals and initiatives for a whole host of different topics. What I'm going to focus on today is just a very high-level touch on those parts that relate to air quality, including our climate neutrality plan, strategic energy planning, clean transportation plan. I did drop a link in the chat if you wanted to go in and see those 7 plans for yourself. Always interested in your feedback. So next slide, please, Darby. So just to start off, I do want to acknowledge that San Diego, the Airport Authority, in late 2021 became a subscriber of San Diego Community Power, and we immediately upped to the 100% grid delivered renewable electricity in the form of the Power 100 champion. So we're excited about that. That essentially zeroes out our scope 2 immediately. But we are excited to work with SDRCC, and I see Collins on the call as well, to help provide feedback on programs and opportunities. So next slide. Having said that, sustainability is really embedded in everything that we do at the airport. In addition to the grid delivered to renewable electricity, we look at how can we make the best high performance buildings. Obviously, cost is a factor, given the $3.2 billion project that's happening just outside our windows here. We really do have to acknowledge costs, so there's trade-offs with everything. But we are building PUI as for process and non-process loads. So we're really starting to think about how, as we transition to electric, we can also just continue to develop our buildings that are high performance possible. So I'll get into the sustainable features in the next slides. So just to start out, we are starting to think about what is our carbon budget or the annual operational carbon. Again, at the end of the day, with us and probably everyone on the call, cost is the major driving factor. But we're really trying to build in the carbon conversation into all of our buildings and different assets, the quality of the resource. So in addition to looking at site energy for both regulated and unregulated loads, and trying to tweak and optimize wherever we can, we're really trying to look at the impact of operational carbon on design and operation. The Terminal 1 that's going to be displaced with the new Terminal 1 is a 50-year-old asset. That's a long time to have a building operationally. So anything we can do up front is really the strategy effective. And so when you go upstream, really what serves the load, as you can see on the table on the right, really the biggest challenges are central plants. So no surprise that was made it through that the poll a few minutes ago already. But when we talk about stationary sources, that's really our scope 1 sources. That's the really big challenge that we need to tackle. So we're starting down that road with the recovery chiller in different ways that we can transition from natural gas to boilers, etc. It's a very timely, costly endeavor, so we'll be at it for quite some time. Next slide. Having said that, I guess one other thing to note about the airport in the future is there is a electricity loop around campus. It's a 12 kV, it's a medium voltage electricity loop that has service from SPG from a few different redundant energy points. But so we are constrained at the network, if you will, level of how much power can be distributed. I started with clean vehicles because one of the big challenges and opportunities, but the challenge around transitioning local sources to electric is just the power requirements. So we're in lots of meetings with SPG&E and design professionals to help figure out how we can tweak the levers of energy management, still provide electrification as an amenity for our passengers, our customers, our employees. So what you see on the left is the station that we work in collaboration with San Diego Gas and Electric. This is employee workplace charging, Power Your Drive. We have actually a number of clean transportation projects happening right now with SDG. One that you see on the right, we are transitioning our fleet of buses, both the cutaway shuttles, represented in this picture, and the large transit buses, to electric. It's a long transition time as fleet is turned over, but not as long as you think. It's actually happening pretty quickly. So the picture on the right is the San Diego Flyer, which does provide a route from Old Town shuttle service. It's a free service to the airport. Drop one more link in the chat there. So as you're thinking about your next way to get to the airport, please consider the Old Town shuttle as a route to the airport. So we're looking also at, as we build new parking garages, deploying more EV charging. So that's kind of the load management part of the equation. We're also planning for build out for transportation network companies, the Ubers and Lyfts, and also taxis as they come along in their transition to electric. So again, very large sources of electricity that are not currently demonstrated on our grid. So lots of challenges and opportunities. And we get funding from FAA, from SDG, as I mentioned, from other statewide programs as well. Next slide, please. And when we talk about, although we are receiving 100% grid delivered electricity, you may ask yourself, why would you want to deploy more, solar and battery storage? So a few reasons, but one is, cost containment. We currently have a 4 MWh storage battery storage system and 5 megawatts of solar. That really, in our opinion, in addition to the cost containment, just there's losses with everything, and so the more we can generate and consume, I guess to borrow Crystal's metaphor, to consume our energy on site, then the better off we are. So we are planning for more of both of these assets being in conjunction with construction of New Terminal 1. Next slide. And so what this picture represents, this is our Terminal 2 parking garage or Terminal 2 parking plaza. One thing that we do that's kind of a proxy or shortcut to delivering high performance assets at the airport is to leverage the relevant certifications that go along with the type of work. For parking garages, there's ParkSmart. For civil projects, there's the Envision certification. And so I want to call out that we got Envision and ParkSmart Gold, both gold on this project, the Terminal 2 parking garage. As certification thresholds ramp up, it's harder to accomplish, but we're definitely proud of this asset. And it filled up recently, which is plus a little duress, but people are coming back. That's great news for us. Next slide. This picture I was trying to represent our fleet of buildings across the airport that we leverage for our building assets. And the most recent 4 buildings that were designed, constructed, commissioned were associated buildings in advance of our New Terminal 1. So the 4 buildings, kind of top left, facilities management department, that's the office, the administrative offices, that actually recently in 2021 achieved LEED Platinum. So we're very proud of that building. We're proud of all of them. If you go to the right of that, you see the facilities management department and procurement warehouse. You see the gold. Bottom left is our airline support building or a belly cargo area. That's where all the stuff goes out on transport aircraft that has cargo holds. And on the bottom right is our airline fueling operations. You might remember from the first slide, we are transitioning also to a way to get pumps. So aircraft can fuel at the gates themselves instead of having all the fuel trucks run, which also cause more. So to date, knock on wood, we haven't had a building under LEED Gold on our campus. And these 4 buildings are actually, they don't have any natural gas plumbed into them. So these are perfect candidates for like a net zero certification. we're considering that. And all of our assets are also able to leverage our photovoltaic system for lead Park Smart, Envision, and others to be able to utilize those assets. And I think that might be it, but please advance no more. If you are interested in learning more about our sustainability, I did put the link to our management plans in the chat, but if you go to sustain.san.org, that's our annual sustainability report that's published. So comments, feedback is always welcome. And with that, Darby, I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. Really appreciate that. So we have a few minutes for questions. I know I saw some in the chat, but feel free to raise your hand or just unmute and start talking. But thank you to our presentations.
I had a quick one, Corey, for you. This is Colin Santulli with the San Diego Community Power. I'm curious about the toolkit. I think it's a fantastic idea. So kudos to you and La Mesa. And no, I don't mean to put you on the spot. So if you have information later, you could send around, be good. But I'm curious about the usage kind of data behind the toolkits. So how often they're being used, and then also the demographics of who is using them. If you're able, I'm assuming you're able to access that via library card, but there may be some privacy issues. But again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'd be really curious to see where those toolkits are being used.
No, that's a really good question. I'm not as sure about the demographics. That's a good something for me to follow up with our library and see if that is something they can track. The usage, I will say, we have a number of kits, and they're not being checked out as much as we'd want. And I guess the flip side of that is there's normally one available if someone wants to check it out. But, I think it is something new. People don't always think I'm going to go get an infrared camera at the library. And so we definitely have to reinforce that message because often when we do talk about it with residents, they're pleasantly surprised. And so that's something we're continuing to work out. And maybe there's opportunities to partner with San Diego Community Power to do some of that outreach.
Yeah, definitely some cross promotion for sure. Maybe when consumers or residents are going to take that initial step when they're searching for home upgrades and whatnot, if they can be somehow routed to that toolkit, because I know a lot of folks can't afford to hire someone out to do that work, and being able to do it at home with the instructions, with the tools is a great resource. So if you're able to share at some point the usage data and if possible the demographics would be really good as well. Thank you. And thanks for having me, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Caitlin, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I had a question for Crystal to kind of carry on her analogy. I was wondering how long it took to bake, or in other words, how long is the process of everything? What's that look like? Or I know it may vary city to city, but what's it look like for you so far in Encinitas?
Yeah, that's a good question. For us, I'd say kind of a rough estimate is it's about a year. I mean, each process there's the steps can vary, the time for each step can vary, but for us it was about a year.
And that you think had a lot to do with maybe going back and forth 4 times you said, or whatever. It's probably
usually that is around 4 to 6 weeks to go back and forth with council. Usually you only have to go twice, but since we went 4 times, it was more like 2 to 2.5 months for that part of it. And then since we had such a robust public input process, that part of it took about 6 months, I'd say, just in and of itself for the couple of workshops. And we formed a in-depth committee that provided input. So that took a little bit longer. And then the drafting of it, I'd say, took, around 4 months. And that was a little bit overlapped with the public input portion. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Crystal, while you're on the spot, I know Corey dropped something in the chat for you. Have you seen any impact from the exemptions that were removed by City Council?
Yeah, that's a good question. Really, the main impact is that even though those exemptions were removed, the few that are remaining, we actually aren't in full implementation mode yet because our ordinance has not been approved by the California Energy Commission. So a little bit time will tell on that, but we're already starting to see people who are trying to utilize the couple of remaining exemptions that we do have to try to get out of the requirements. So there's, you try to anticipate as much as you possibly can when you write an ordinance, but some things are unanticipated, and now we're working on kind of policy implementation documents to help facilitate responses when we do receive exemption requests and how to evaluate those and whether to approve them or not. So that's kind of currently happening at the moment. I don't know if that answered your question, Corey. Okay, cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Crystal. There's a couple in here for Chad. Corey asked if he missed it, but are there EV chargers at the TNC parking lots? And then there's another question on how is waste management handled, recycled, salvaged, upcycled at the airport?
Yeah, good question, Corey. And how's my mic? Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah, we are reconfiguring a TNC and taxi hold lot. And so we are looking to deploy a couple of DC fast chargers at that location for them. TNCs are in particular subject to clean mile standard. And so we're trying to help facilitate the adoption of EV charging for that group. We're also looking at a couple of areas along the terminals as well, where we'd be able to deploy DC fast charging. This would be for commercial and not for public use at this point. I do want to call out for the second question. I do want to call out. I have a couple of colleagues on the call here. Ralph Redmond, who's incoming advisory board member, and also Katie Altobello on the call. So when you talk about waste management, that is a very deep dive that we can go into for hours. So Dale, if you want to, we can set up a sidebar meeting and talk about that. But we have a very robust zero waste initiative at the airport, as documented in our zero waste plan. That doesn't really get to your answer, except to say that it happens on a lot of fronts. And the first goal of the zero waste plan is to try to minimize the amount of material, non-recyclable or reusable material on campus. So we look at the pyramid and we start as upstream as possible, but we have many, millions of visitors a year and staff, 8,000 to 9,000 employees at the airport. So there's a lot of material generated.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. So I want to move us to have a little bit of time just for some dialogue and for folks to connect and maybe share, what they're working on with others. So I want to transfer us kind of to our networking cafe. But is there we can maybe take one more question for our speakers. If any folks have them, feel free to just raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll transition us. Awesome. Well, hearing none, thank you again, Crystal, Chad, and Corey, for sharing. And I'll make sure that we also share out, the slides for folks so that they can participate. So we're going to do something that we haven't yet done with this group. So bear with us while we try this out. But, one of the things that we noticed, being virtual, there's this opportunity for us to be, participatory in more meetings, right? Because it's, we don't have to drive anywhere. We're not, changing location. But at the same time, a lot of the Climate Collaborative Network meetings, pre our COVID virtual days, a lot of the great parts about these network meetings was that we got to have lunch together, share and kind of have some sidebar conversations with folks, not necessarily on the topics of the meeting itself, but just, what they're interested in. So wanted to do our best to recreate that in this, virtual space for the next 20 minutes. So hopefully folks can stay on. And so we'll close from there. So but I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. There's going to be 4 rooms, so you can opt into whichever room you'd like. But each room is going to have a different theme that folks are, interested in talking about. So room 1, which is named resilience, is on creating a resilient built environment through decarbonization strategies. So if you want to mingle with folks about this topic, jump into room 1. Room 2 is all about electrification, thinking about EV infrastructure and EV capacity building. So a little bit of what Chad was just talking about. Room 3 is going to be equity. So thinking about climate and the energy nexus. So, how we're implementing some of these strategies without causing, gentrification or, actually serving our communities. And then 4 is going to be in the news. So thinking about energy independence or any current energy events that you want to talk about or digest or legislation or whatever is where we'll go from there. So I'm going to open the breakout rooms. I don't know if it's going to pop up on your screen or if you'll need to click breakout rooms at the bottom and see them, but you can join. And if you cannot figure it out, you're also welcome to unmute and tell me which room you want to go into. But if you click breakout room, it's in the bottom of your meeting controls. You should see all 4 rooms: resilience, electrification, equity, and in the news. Someone on SDRCC staff confirm that happened.
There aren't any controls for the breakout rooms that I see. Have you opened the breakout rooms yet?
They are open. So I think if you click the breakout rooms, you should be able to join them manually.
I'm not seeing a button to click for the breakout rooms, like the usual breakout room button.
Okay, well, then maybe if folks can just drop in the chat which room they want to go to, I will quickly assign you to those spaces. Great. All right. I'm going to stop sharing so I have things side by side here. Great. Sorry, this is taking a little longer than anticipated.
I'm just gonna put the topics in the chat in case they forgot.
Thank you. Okay. Who is not yet in a room that wants to be? Crystal, you want electrification. Corey, where do you want to go?
Wherever, really. No one's gone to the news yet, right?
I don't think anyone's
Maybe
gone
I won't go there. I'll go to the equity, please.
Great. Ralph, where would you like to go?
Number 1, resilience.
Number 1. Tanisha, Rebecca, Courtney, and RJ. Do you all know where you want to go? Courtney, resilience, absolutely. Have fun. Rebecca, Tanisha, RJ.
Yeah, I'll go to equity.
Great. Have fun. And then RJ and Tanisha, is there a room that you'd like to go to? Otherwise, I can just assign you somewhere fun.